And we're back. It's the Writers Guild podcast. It's me, Belton, and Kaysen. Okay,
What?
so today's theme, or like the theme for today's topic, is show don't tell. So I asked Kaysen to come up with a question pertaining to that topic, and I have one for him as well. But Kaysen, would you like to hit it off with your question, or would you like me to start off? What are you thinking?
What? My question to you was going to be, who is who is an author, a story, or a scene that you think did a really excellent job of showing versus telling?
Whoa.
I've got one vividly in my mind, and it's from a movie. But I'd be curious, like if you want to be
That's such a
spinning
good
the
question.
wheel, thinking of content.
Okay, well, not really answering your question first off. I'd say a great example of telling, I think, is in the first half of the Jurassic Park novel. Michael Crichton was just so extremely thorough in explaining all the different components of the park, and I love to tell people about this. It's like Legos to me. Like he just so precisely described this park to the reader that when things start to fall apart, you really get a sense of what's going wrong and thus the stakes. And it's because he was so deliberate in telling us about the ins and outs of the park and its functions. So I think that's a gold standard example of tell.
It's a great example.
Doesn't pertain to characterization or anything like that, but it is a critical aspect of writing. I guess you could say it's a part of world building in a science fiction sense, talking about the world that story specifically occupied, which was a park. I mean, it's supposed to occupy real life, so it's not like he had to do any world building outside of that, but he did have to build a park, which is the world of the story. Anyway, as far as show's concerned, give me a second, dude. I think we both kind of threw big questions at each other.
No, you're good. I will answer for your question about when is it appropriate to tell, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking through like exceptions to the rule, and
Yeah.
I think your example is excellent where it helps build the stakes and the arc and just understanding the world that the story is taking place in.
Mm-hmm.
So world building is one aspect, or it can be, it can service to tell in a lot of cases. But I think anime does it really well, like where they kind of set the stage for the world and why things are the way they are. Dystopian novels, same thing. The other exception that I was thinking of is when you're trying to build the voice of a character. Sometimes, like a Gandalf, for instance, he can tell a lot, or maybe that's a bad example, but I'm trying to think of a good example. But sometimes it's more powerful, I think, delivered through the words of a character, depending on the situation. So I think there are exceptions to the rule there.
Yeah.
Where it could be like, you have your hero and your mentor, and the mentor is explaining why things are the way that they are, things along those lines. Trying to think of a specific example. I'm blanking. We got to fill the silence.
That's okay, man. So yeah, I think, adding to that, I think that showing versus telling is extremely important when it comes to characterization, especially given human nature. Like most people, we don't really speak that candidly of ourselves. We always kind of speak elliptically. I think it's a little goofy, and it was meant to be. It was meant to be campy, so this isn't a criticism, but I just think it makes a good example. But harking back to the new Superman movie, I think it's a little goofy when, one character in the movie is like, Lex, why do you hate Superman so much? And he's like, I'm so happy that you asked me. You see, I happen to have this whole thing with how he's so good at everything, and I have to struggle, and that's what makes me, I'm on the verge of tears. Ooh. It's like people usually aren't that transparent. Like I think it'd be much more natural if a real human were asked, like, why do you hate Superman? And be like, freaking stupid outfit. Like, that's not what he actually thinks about. You know what I mean? Like, usually people don't, what comes to mind isn't the actual thing. It much like how, you know, a married couple might get in an argument and they're arguing over a thing, and a psychologist would say the thing is not the thing. They're not actually upset about this. They're upset about their inability in that moment to harmonize with each other through their conversation, and whatever underlying issues that represents, you know. So yeah, you know, we kind of like express ourselves elliptically. We're not usually that direct about how we function, especially if somebody like confronts you about something, like, hey, why do you do XYZ? You know, the instinct isn't to like, oh, just let me just like lay this all bare for you with your pointed question here. That's not usually a response. I never watched Game of Thrones, but I saw a clip on YouTube that I always thought was really silly. There's a character in it who's like a part of, I think like it's the King's Council. Again, didn't watch it, so I can't really speak to details. But I think he was like one of the King's advisors. And I'm pretty sure he's like a monk or something. And he kind of like hunches over all the time, and he's always stammering. And he's very much presented as this kind of like doddering old man who's just got a few too many loose screws up in his head and isn't really with the program. And one of the characters who's very cunning and calculating is, you know, sitting by a riverbank, just kind of chilling out, reading a book or whatever he was doing. And this monk comes by and he's like, oh, my lord, just kind of stammering and stumbling and just being an oaf. And the Lord is like, you can drop the act. No one else is around. And then the monk goes, oh, I didn't think anyone would ever notice it was an act. And I just thought that was kind of goofy because, like, people aren't like that when they get confronted. They're not going to be like, oh, yeah, that was an act. They're not going to drop it. People are all about saving face. But
doubling down.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, doubling down. I mean, especially when confronted in an aggressive way that might kind of wound the pride, the instinct is to save face, you know. It's a part of human nature. I'll always make that argument. But yeah, I think show is most applicable when it comes to characterization. Is the summation of that rambling.
No, I absolutely agree on that. I think an example of when tell can work really well is anytime you have a narrator, mostly for movies, of course, but the voice overlaying a scene where they're kind of showing images of the world, just again, kind of setting the stage for everything. And you have like the young woman speaking, telling of why things are the way they are, or like the older man, whatever it might be. But that's an instance too where I think it's a little bit of a cheat code. Like you can slip in a lot and help build the world with that narrator function. And that's another example. I'd say it's not specific, but it's an example of when tell can work really well.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, that's the thing. That's kind of like the larger argument that kind of harps on the larger argument I make with the show don't tell thing. It was like basically when I first started getting into writing, I remember a lot of these video essays on YouTube were making a big deal about show don't tell. And I think when it comes to writing a book specifically, I think the discipline of show don't tell gets oversold, because when it comes to a book is words, it's ideas. There's only so much showing you can do because these are words, which are telling you stuff, you know? Yeah.
I mean, good point.
At least that's my perspective on it. So like a movie fundamentally shows you what's going on, which is a big reason why I think movies can get away with some ridiculous stuff. Like, I don't know if you ever watched the first G.I. Joe movie, but it has this sequence where they attack the villain's base, which is like under the water in the Arctic.
Oh yeah.
And there's a bunch of explosives planted in the ice above, and they're blown up, and the ice sinks. Everybody knows that ice doesn't sink, and yet there's a scene where a character's like, the ice is sinking, and it's like, oh frick, and it's really dramatic and played up. And they could get away with that because they were showing it And it's still stupid, but I think that would be 1,000 times dumber if you were explaining that in a book. It just, I think that it's more like,
Agreed.
it's more like an argument when you're writing a book. You're convincing somebody of something, you know, because it follows the same format of an argument in that you're communicating with these words as opposed to just showing it happening. You know, seeing is believing. Yes.
Well, I was chatting with one of our Writers Guild compatriots.
Yes,
and
comrades.
I was going to say comrades. That sounded Soviet, but I mean, her name is Nadia, so it's like, all right, that's like halfway there to
There you go.
Sovietism.
Yeah.
But she was telling me a little bit about, it was actually a pretty fascinating insight where she was talking about writing in first person POV and how for her, and I'm experiencing some of this myself in my current novel, it really became kind of a journal.
Yeah.
And I think by that, it's implying that there was a lot of tell in there.
Yeah.
And it's like telling how you're thinking instead of showing it. And that's where books have such a leg up on movies. I mean, sure, you have actors and they have I think that was a bad follow-up to what I was just saying. But like the actors can portray something and maybe like show it a little bit better. But like in a book, you can get inside the character's mind, but you want to do so tactfully so that it accentuates what you're showing on the page, like the actions they are taking or what they are doing. Especially for first person POV, I think it can be a little bit trickier because you don't want to overdo it and end up sort of journaling what they're thinking and channeling too much of your own emotions or take on the situation or what you want the reader to take away from it. You need to be a little more hands off, let the story roll as it's supposed to be.
Oh, dude, that's great. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And that's why I've been saying this whole time, show, don't tell, never tell. That's what, no,
never tell.
That was a joke. Yeah. No. Okay. So I think I have an answer for you. I feel like trying to think off the top of my
answer for show or
yeah, for a great example of show and writing.
Okay, perfect.
I'm not wholly satisfied with the answer I've come up with in my mind, but you came up with a really great question. So it's a really great question, and as such, I'm like having to like really dig it and think like, whoa, what is my answer to this? But one that does come to mind, one of the first things that came to mind was like the evil of the ring in Lord of the Rings. I think Tolkien kind of set a gold standard for evil personified in an otherwise, an inanimate object, giving it a sense of personality. I think the way he expressed that is brilliant, but more specifically, I am going to bring this back to Under the Dome, Stephen King's Under the Dome. No, sorry. Hold on. I'm starting to unpack my thoughts that were going through my head as I was looking for an answer.
Let it roll.
No, there's another Stephen King novel. It's called The Outsider, I believe. And it's about a town, an American town, because that's always where Stephen King novels are set, where this horrible crime is committed. And the perpetrator is, in true Stephen King fashion, a supernatural force. And basically, like, this tragedy happens, and all the characters don't know something supernatural has happened. They just know that a crime has been committed, and there's this emotional fallout that comes with the crime, especially with the family that was personally affected by it. And King, in true King fashion, really takes his time to show that family's grief. There's chapter after chapter. It takes time to read through this, And then there finally comes a point where you get a sneak peek of the monster, and he just shows it. And he doesn't say it was scary. He doesn't tell you it's scary. He doesn't tell you, the character who saw it was scared. He just describes it. And there's, you know how it is like when you read something and you're just left completely staggered, trying to wrap your head around how this author gave you such a strong impression with the words they use. And like, where's the magic in that? How'd they pull that off? It's like a magician's trick. And the way he described this creature, dude, it works so well. Like, he didn't. It worked so well. I was adding my own kind of theatric effects to the experience. like you see the monster's face, you just get a glimpse of it in the dark. And in my mind, I heard like, the classic, like kind of dissonant, sudden strike of a piano key or of some sort of stringed instrument that kind of goes a dong kind of sound effect.
Yeah.
That just automatically played in my head. Because it was such an effective horror moment that it made me think of like a classic like horror sound effect when you get a jump scare, It worked so well. And all he did was
Outsider.
show. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough, man. Not unlike Under the Dome. Under the Dome is tougher because Under the Dome doesn't stop being tough. But The Outsider kind of throws you some gut punches right out the gate that are not pretty. Stephen King's not afraid to pull his punches, or he's not afraid to not pull his punches. He doesn't pull his punches.
Oh, no,
I don't know what I'm saying.
I read Under the Dome.
yeah. I'm just get ready, man, because it's consistent with how tough his books are.
Buckle up.
Yeah, buddy. But yeah, honestly, actually do. On that note, I actually do recommend Outsider because it's great. With Stephen King, I'd say it's all about the journey, not the destination. Consistently, in his books, you're not going to get this brilliant twist that makes you go like, "Oh, that makes sense. That all connected." Woo. Yes.
Well, I was just going to say, I think in thrillers and horror in general, you kind of do need to be all show. Like if you tell it in mystery, obviously, then it just spoils the entire experience to a degree. Like it's that mystery, that mystique, that question mark that kind of keeps pushing the reader.
So I will push back on that because like when I first attempted to write a draft for my book, so my answer to that is yes. However, there is a limit, I would argue. And this is just me expressing my perspective. I do not at all claim to have like the authority on this topic whatsoever.
Dude, we are the authority.
Yeah.
Listeners, don't listen to him. We are the authority.
Well, I think this is the cool thing about like such a, a pure art form like writing is that there really is no definitive right way to do it. There's just a right way for you to write. So whatever strategies we employ in writing stories, somebody else can come along and just totally throw that rule book out the window and come up with something brilliant that just defies reason. It works anyway. It just needs to be done well. Anyway, okay. So I actually lost my train of thought.
Oh, what? Oh dear. Yeah, I guess I did. I kind of did too. Okay, we were talking about thrillers and how horror thrillers, and you wanted to push back.
I totally lost it. I lost it again. No,
no, I did that earlier. Yeah. Well, it wasn't.
No, wait. I got to say it before I forget again.
On a towel. Yeah,
okay,
go.
So I was going to push back on it. The first attempt I made to write a draft for my book, I really, from the beginning, had a fixation on making it kind of like a thriller, right? Making it suspenseful, making it steeped in mystery. And as such, I wanted to kind of cloak the story. And I was also very obsessed with show, don't tell. I mean, I wanted to show. Right, I didn't want to tell. And what the thing was, I did all show, no tell. And I really leaned into it being mysterious. But the thing is, there's a certain amount of tell you got to do so that people understand the stakes and understand what the mystery is. Because at the very least, you need a context, Mm-hmm. And so as a result, that first draft I wrote was just completely incoherent. If you didn't know the story going in, you wouldn't ever understand it because it was always withholding information. You need a context. You need a framework. How can I know? Well, how can I know? I maybe this isn't the best way to frame it, but the thing that comes to mind is like, how can I know something's missing if I don't know someone's looking for something? And how could I not know if it's important if I don't see that they're upset or something like that? Mm-hmm. Point being, there needs to be some information communicated to give us
for sure, like establish the stakes.
Yeah. So I do push back against that a little bit. Just because I kind of took it. I mean, granted, it was my first draft, so I was taking a sort of extreme, ignorant approach with it. But yeah, that was something I learned was like, okay, there needs to be some tell. Otherwise, if the reader's totally in the dark, they're not going to have anything to latch onto to care about. Yeah.
No, for sure. And I think that goes back to our original point where tell works really well in a world building
Yeah.
scenario where you're trying to, again, kind of establish the stakes in the frame of reference. And then from there, in kind of the sequential action scenes,
Yeah.
or and by action I just mean whatever the characters, like
Yeah, of
whatever
course.
their progress is for the promise. So I would, oh, you know what? Let's steal one from Brandon Sanderson. So promise,
Oh,
progress,
yeah.
payoff. Let's say the promise can be tell. Like I don't think either of us are against that. Like we both seem like we're sure, like show sometimes. Like I've read books. Thief of Swords, I feel like, is a pretty good example of show, or and in general fantasy. A lot of times they just start dropping names on you, and you're just kind of like, well, and then Gibraltar from the kingdom of Rexion, and it just kind of forces you to adapt and learn the language of the story as you're going.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And then I've read fantasy books where they do sort of launch you, or give you a little bit of a soft launch, and they're like, this place is at war with these people because of, actually, let me give you a specific example
Go for it.
of a tell scenario in a book that I think works well, and that's Tale of Two Cities, where it sets the stage. That intro chapter, it's like, oh man, I'm gonna butcher it, but you know, it was a time of peace and a time of war, and blah blah blah, and like
Yeah.
kind of goes through this like this contrast and duality, and that completely sets up the rest of the book really well. But the promise, I feel like can be, or I think we're aligned on that being show or tell. It's kind of doesn't necessarily need to be one or the other. But then once we get to progress, that's where I feel like it switches, and it's like show as much as you can. The characterization piece that you were talking about, to me, is huge. Where I don't want to hear, or I don't want the character to be like, that guy's such a mean douchebag. I want to see that in what that guy's doing, and then I come to my own conclusion. And I don't know if that's a universal sentiment, but it kind of seems to be with the emphasis that writers have on showing versus telling.
Yes.
So I would say that progress, specifically show, don't tell, and then payoff, I'd say goes hand in hand with that. But
Okay.
Any thoughts?
I got two thoughts to add to that. The
Let's
first
go.
one I want to add, which is just a little fun side bit, was when you gave the example of a character saying, that guy's a mean douchebag. And you're like, well, let me come to my own conclusions. I love that. I also thought to myself, it'd be really fun if you like introduce the character that way, where the other guy's like, that guy's a mean douchebag. And the main character's like, okay. And then he meets the guy and the guy's super nice. And he's just left thinking, when's the other shoe going to drop? Like, or was the other guy just pulling my leg? I think it'd be fun. And then it turns out that it could be fun either way. It could be like, it turns out the guy who said he's a mean douchebag just has some grievance with him, or he's the actual jerk in the equation, or the other guy is just really good at putting on the right airs. Cause like in the Farseer trilogy, the book series I'm reading right now, there's a character who's like that, who just presents himself so well. He's very good at politics. But he's terrible. He's an absolute serpent of a person. The other thought I had was like, oh, you casually name drop Brandon Sanderson. And honestly, I think he does all of the above to the max. He shows a ton and he tells a ton.
Tells a lot.
Yes. Yeah. So like, I remember the first Brandon Sanderson novel I read knowingly, because I read a novella before, The Emperor's Soul. One of the first ones, like a proper full-size novel of his I read. I remember diving in, and people, like you said, they're name dropping stuff and talk about show, don't tell. People are just like, oh yeah, that. They're existing in this world. They know what's going on. There is no Harry Potter to be kind of like walked through the world and educated on the this, that, and the other. It's just figure it out as you go. But I actually really liked that method of approach, where it was just show. Because the idea behind it is like, if you've got a cohesive structure, a coherent world that you've built, when you make these scattered, fragmented references to different elements of it, a person's going to get a sense of order, not chaos from that, because there is an order behind the things referenced, and they'll slowly start to piece it together. And I actually really like that. I started to do that in my own writing because I just thought it was such a great way. That was an example of somebody throwing the rule book out the window, where usually the understanding is like, well, when I introduce a thing, I need to kind of like flesh it out and make sure it makes sense so I don't leave the reader in the dust. Not Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson will do that. And guess what? It actually works. There's just a way that you got to go about it. And the argument I would make is you need to do your homework first and get a nice solid baseline of a world built up that you're referencing. And that way,
I would agree. My only pushback would be that sometimes it just continues. And what I think The Will of the Many does very well is it drops you in, it shows you a few critical elements, and then it brings them back. And it's kind of reoccurring in the sense where it's the same tool, or it's not continuously expanding. Like one of my major beefs with, this is going to get me canceled, but one of my major beefs with the Stormlight Archives is the world keeps expanding and he keeps adding all these elements.
Did you ever finish that series?
What he's talking about half the time. What was that?
Did you ever finish that series?
No, I like, you can't tell me that book 4 is interesting. It is so boring.
Yeah, it's boring. So, the ending is cool. Okay. The 5th one is worth it. No, I totally agree. That was the grief I had with that series. Was I got to the end of it, and I agree. It was like we got this ocean that is hundreds of square miles and an inch deep, and it was getting frustrating because it was starting to get the Star Wars prequel effect. Like in the Star Wars prequel movies, it's like every time somebody has to go somewhere, it's a freaking new planet, and it's like I've never seen this before. And as a kid, it's like ooh, right. But as an adult, it's like I know a story is better when everything connects. And not everything has to connect. There can be loose ends, like in Lord of the Rings, there's the blue wizards that are unaccounted for. That's mystery. That's good world building. It's not like you should live and die by one principle of your writing. But all that being said, I've always found it's so much better when things connect. Like my own writing, I personally, on a personal level, found so much more satisfaction in my world building when I took one idea that was over here and another idea over here, and I connected them, and it made my world make more sense. And it makes it easier to keep up with, and I think it keeps it more engaging and meaningful, as opposed to here's 1,000 ideas scattered across the spectrum, none of them connect. It kind of makes it all feel meaningless and shallow. It's so much more interesting. And it's funny because Brandon Sanderson has said this in lectures. It's so much more interesting to take an idea and just continue to give it depth, give it more depth, give it more depth. And that's a big reason why I love the magic system in the Farseer trilogy that I'm reading right now. It's a rock solid magic system idea.
Remind me, because I've read those books.
Yes.
And they were excellent. It's probably been about 10 years or
a
long time.
Worth a reread.
Okay. Remind me what the magic system is in that.
It's basically telepathy. That's it at its core principle, but that's not what makes it special, because that's a pretty common system. Like, you think of Professor X, like, I'm inside your mind. Whoa! And it's nothing original, but what made it so special with this author did such a good job at expressing the magic system in an interesting way, like describing, or I should say showing through description. Robin Hobb.
That's
with
right.
2 B's. Okay. She did such a good job at describing, and thus showing, to stay on theme here, or on brand, or whatever, showing the magic happening by specifically like describing the act of telepathy, just as you would describe somebody walking down a hall and reaching out to someone physically, keeping it like that, which keeps it grounded and engaged. By having those human elements you can reference, reaching out, grabbing, things like that. Dipping into a river, things like that, just keep it engaging. That and the various utilities that expand from it. Like, well, if you can read minds and do mental stuff, what could you do with that? Well, you can plant, and this is contingent on the skill of the user. It's not like anyone just has the power and it's like, congratulations, you're God now. But like a very skilled person theoretically could plant in you an obsession with somebody so that you're like fiercely loyal to this person that you might have hated before, or they might, put in you this immense insecurity that completely cripples you when you were otherwise totally confident before, or they, will go into your mind and try to pluck out memories so that they then know what you know, which is conventional mind reading. But there's all sorts of other things that expand from it. It's so interesting. And that's the magic system in the story. And it's just given more depth, and you continue to see more interesting ways in which it's applied. It's not like, oh, here's a totally different magic system from another planet that's completely unrelated, and it has its own capital letter name to give it a unique identity, and it has its own philosophy for its power and what they do and all that. Nothing like that. I find that more engaging. I mean, I've only got the one magic system in my book, and my intent is for there to be an expansion of applications and depth of skill. And there's not going to be another magic system. And another thing is, this is kind of just a tangent here. It's not. It doesn't concern Show Don't Tell, but I'd be very curious to know what you have to say about this. I personally am not. Oh, actually, I think I might know what you were going to say about this. This is not meant as an attack or anything. But okay. So I'm reading. Yeah. So I'm reading the Farseer trilogy, and early on, the main character is like the only one that has a very specific power, and it makes him mysterious, and everyone's scared of him. And whenever he does something with the power, it's like it's his thing, and it's very special and kind of dark and foreboding. And I find it really cool. And then you get to the third book, and you meet like a colony of people that are like, yeah, we do that too. And it changed the tone. It just flipped it on its head. It went from this really cool, mysterious power to feeling like more like a kid's cartoon where there's a whole group of people that are just have the power, or something like Harry Potter, where it's not special anymore, you know?
Kung Fu Panda finding out he's not the only panda.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good reference. Yeah. I remember even as a kid, I saw that and I was like, boo. His dad was a duck. We never got explanations, and that was funny. It's just left hanging there. I'm curious to know what you have to think about that. I personally, and it's reflected in my writing, very few people have superpowers in my story. Most people are just people. And I like it that way because personally, I like a human grounded struggle. I like something a little more like Indiana Jones, where, yeah, crazy, adventurous things are happening, but the person at the end is totally dish-ragged. And I find that fun. That, and like when somebody does have power and expresses that power, it's like this special, exciting thing. I really like that. I don't like it when, like, specifically when a story starts with like one person has power and then you meet another person. I think once you get like one or two other people that have it as well, that can kind of like raise the stakes. But then if you add too many people, then it dilutes what makes that power special, and then it's no longer special. This is something I think about because there's certain pieces of media in which that happens, where there's like one person and they're the person with the thing, and it's like, woo. And then you meet more and more people with that power. And then there just comes a point where like, well, you said there's only 7 people with this power. I'm referencing something specific, a video game, so don't worry about it. You said there was only 7 people with this power in the universe. So like, why are they all here?
What video game?
The franchise is called Borderlands. There's these people called sirens, and the people with powers. And in the first game, there's one person who's a siren, and that's special. And in the second game, when they kind of double down on the narrative, they really emphasize how special it is to be a siren. And there's another siren you meet, and it's like, whoa, here's another siren. At least that's how I remember it going. It's been a long time. But at this point in the franchise, there's so many sirens. It's just like, well, you said there's like 7, only 7 in existence at a time. And they're all right here. I understand big things are happening here, but it just kind of seems convenient. You know, it's a big universe. There's got to be big stuff happening elsewhere too. And the fact they're all here just, I guess it's not really that special anymore. That was a long rant. Thank you for listening.
Well, I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, so Jedis were initially kind of what popped into my head.
Oh, yeah. Dude, you're making great references.
Had like one Jedi that was like, oh, wow. Like, oh my gosh. And then the prequels came along, or like 1 or 2. Then the prequels came along and I was like, oh, you've got an entire Jedi Knight temple. And that's part of the lore. But it did sort of dilute the power of a Jedi in my mind, just because dime a dozen. So that was one thought that popped into my head. Um, Another example, examples of where I think it works is like I just read a book called The Will of the Many. I've referenced it.
Yeah.
Um, and the magic system in it's pretty incredible.
Oh.
And it's pretty interesting because he goes to an academy where you're not allowed to use the magic that, and I say magic loosely, it's, I'm not going to dive into the lore here, but it's pretty interesting. There's like tiers of society, and at the top tier, you have the most power. And anyway, they go to this academy where they're not allowed to use the magic, but outside of the academy, like everyone can. So I think academies like Harry Potter, Hogwarts, in my book, I have a school for Florica wielders. Florica is like the magic system in my trilogy. So I think it works in that setting because it's like, well, the reason they're all here is to learn about said system.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense. That makes in-universe sense. Yeah.
yeah, but I do think, and I think another where it does work, where you have kind of a multiplication of um, the powers, is when the level of evil or the threat of evil is as competent or more threatening, and there's kind of this vying. It's the yin yang, just feeling like there's a balance of powers, is where I think it can work as well. Where it's like, okay, sweet, like our characters are incredibly powerful, but the villains are equally as powerful, and so it keeps the stakes high.
Yeah. Keeps everything in
So
proportion.
the Jedi Knights was one that popped in my head, and then I had another one, and I'm blanking on it now, but of an example where I do agree it can kind of like dilute it. Um, like Harry Potter's one where it works, right? But like oh man, I can't remember what the other one that came to mind was. I'll think of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, those are just some quick responses.
No, that's all good stuff. Yeah. I mean, you're keeping it in proportion and you're referencing instances where it makes in-universe sense. Yeah, so I guess my beef is like specifically when it's a universe in which it's presented initially as like a super ultra rare thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
that slowly gets tossed out the window as things inevitably ramp up because you got to keep raising the stakes. No,
Oh, I
yeah,
got you.
what you got?
Yes. So the other example that popped in my head, we were just talking about it, was the Stormlight Archives, where initially I just
Oh,
loved the
that's right.
fact that, yeah, I mean, it made sense to scale it up and just that, but it seemed like by the fourth book, everyone, like not just Kaladin, like I liked when Kaladin was kind of special and unique in his power,
Yeah,
but by the fourth book, it's like everyone has a certain power, and it's just kind of it's losing its allure to me personally as
yeah,
I'm reading it. So yeah, that was the other example that popped in my head.
dude. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, you're very good at like pulling appropriate references out of the, pulling the rabbit out of the hat, pulling out appropriate references like that. All these things you're referencing, I'm like, oh no, that was perfect. I didn't think of that, but like
Okay.
you nailed
Okay.
it. Um, on the on the topic of Stormlight Archive, I'm again introducing a tangent into the discussion. I know I've said it to you before, but I'm putting it on the record now. I it's so funny because as a means of a qualifier before I make the statement, I've never thought Brandon Sanderson was particularly good at writing warfare.
Hmm.
Like battles in general can kind of be a bit of a drag when he writes them. I don't find them especially engaging most of the time. But something about that introductory battle scene in the first Stormlight Archive book, I think that's one that's called The Way of Kings. He
Yes.
freaking nailed it, dude. It made me
Nailed it.
realize, oh wait, Greco-Roman era fighting. That is an exciting depiction of for fiction for me.
Who would have thought that, right? Like,
Yeah,
you're
so the
saying,
stereotype about like guys always thinking about the Roman Empire. That's not an era of history that I personally have ever really been interested in. So like the military technology and all that, I've never really been interested in the idea of people in armored kilts and sandals, waving around swords and all that. It just never personally resonated with me. I always loved, Wild West America personally, or Knights in Full Plated Armor. Yeah. But the way he described it was so good, and I think a big reason that he excelled in it was, like, first off, he focused on a small squad in the chaos. It wasn't these broad sweeping descriptions of the battle at large, in which you can kind of lose the human touch of it all, and it starts to it feels less engaging because you're not hearing the struggles of a person, of an individual that you would relate to. Instead, you're just getting the overall impact. It starts to feel more like a history book you read, where it's like, and here's the date of the battle, and this many people died, and it's just a statistic, and it's
what
sad.
You're saying is show, don't tell.
Yes. But he showed this wink. He showed this squad, and he very specifically did and again, I think one of Brandon Sanderson's strong points is, like, having a system in place for something and then just showing the reader it in action, and you having an innate understanding of its function that enables you to appreciate how it works and keeps you engaged. And specifically in that fight, he shows the squad fighting together, and, like, one guy gets stabbed in the leg, and he grunts and he steps back, and somebody bandages him, and another person swoops in to take his place with their shield. And they're all calling out things like, oh, this position, that, watch out for that guy, oh, arrows coming in. And I think he just did such a good job at selling the idea of this team that has such great camaraderie fighting together, and they have all this hope because of this leader that's brought them together.
Bridge 4, baby.
Yeah, Bridge 4. Well, that was later. This was kind of the prequel to that. Yeah, but anyway, no. Bridge 4.
Well, I do remember, like, the setting for the battles too, with, like, the what's the word? The ravines between the
Oh yeah.
It was just a cool, like, setting too, like the moving plates and everything, and yeah.
Yeah, the Shattered Plains, I think it was called.
The Shattered Plains, yeah.
Man, that just came to my mind like that.
Good memory. Yeah.
Well, that was the one I got. No, but yeah, man. Yeah. Show.
Boom. All right.
Do you have any follow up you'd like to throw my way with your question? Anything like that? I'm wondering if there's anything I could toss your way as a means of expanding on the topic.
I mean, I feel like that was some pretty good content right there. We can. I don't know that anything, like, pops in my head immediately.
Oh, that's okay. I would like to go ahead, while on the episode, just experimenting, seeing if this works, just go ahead and discuss possible ideas for the next episode's topic. I was kind of getting interested. We started talking about magic systems. Would you like a magic system to be the next topic?
That would be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
That would actually be incredible, because I, like, need help with mine, so that might stimulate some good.
Dude, let's do it. Okay, yeah. Next episode, let's talk about magic systems. So we'll prepare our questions and see how this goes, man. Yeah.
Okay, so we're both thinking of a question related to magic systems.
Yes. Yeah. We'll both think of a question that we're going to throw at each other. Make it as complicated as possible, so the other person just goes, oh. I'm kidding.
Hey, I like talking about it on the episode, and that way it kind of, like, tees up, if for whoever's listening,
all our fans back home.
Know. What?
All of our fans back home, yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, we love you.
Yeah, no, actually.
Else, there were 3 views, I think, so me, you, and Tyler.
Yeah. I loved your comment on the last one. That was fun.
Do you want me to? I can share these episodes. I mean, we are the Writers Guild, in the Writers Guild Discord.
Yeah, I mean, if they're interested, I don't know if they'll bite. I mean, it'd be great if y'all did. Hey, hello, if you're watching. That'd be cool. I mean, that's the way to do it, is to initially just share with friends and family. So, like, just put it out there.
Yeah, they can listen and then rip us apart. So
heck yeah, that's how you improve. Bring it on. Yeah, okay, so we'll talk about magic systems next. I am looking forward to that, because I love magic systems. I think what I'm going to start doing for future episodes is, like, write down my question, but also take down, like, points, like subtopics within the topic that come to mind, just to help keep me engaged throughout the conversation. Just I think that'll help because I know there's other stuff I could think
And I
about.
thought, well, and I thought when you were talking, or what you were saying was like, personally, I'm probably gonna have my remarkable next time and just like jot down as you say something. I'm like, oh, that'd make a cool like topic or something to respond to.
Yeah,
And that way, like we kind of just keep that content flowing, and we're just it's from the conversation.
absolutely. Yeah, I think I think I'm going to take down some bullet points. And just so as we're having a conversation, I can remember, oh, I wanted to talk about this because I'm finding, I don't know about you, but I'm finding it can sometimes be a little tricky to bring up all the stuff I know I would want to talk about pertaining to a topic in the moment. And I'm sure that'll get easier with time, but I'm just kind of getting
Well,
used to this format of discussion.
and I feel like we can always revisit. We can like re-listen to an episode. It's like, hey, we want to talk about show not tell a couple months from now. Let's re-listen to our episode, figure out what we already discussed, and then like attack it from different angles,
Heck
things
yeah.
along those lines.
Also, okay, here's another thought that just came to my mind. I like to think that this would make it more interesting and definitely would give the conversations more focus. Whenever we present each other with questions, would you like for it to be like maybe we could have a question for the episode where it's more of like a kind of debate format where we could kind of talk offline before the episode and find within the primary topic we've chosen find something in which we disagree, and then we could approach debating our conviction on that. Because I think that's a really great way to bring out information from one and the other. Is that kind of like approaching a topic and like, well, I think this. Well, how about this?
And
I
some
think I'd be
weeks we
good.
might just one of us has to play devil's advocate because you and I do tend to align on a lot of things. But I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Yes. I can get like the fake glasses with the big nose and the mustache that I'll put on whenever I play a devil's
Yeah.
advocate. Like, yeah.
It's like, hell, don't show.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay. I think that's going good. Yeah, man. I think that's it, right? I think that's another successful episode.
Writers Guild.
Writers Guild, man. Alrighty. We got to find a way to like officially sign off. You know, where we say something and then blah 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 blah.
Is the recording done?
No, I